Hey everybody, this is Jen LeViseur with Chai and Cabins. Today, Rashmi and I spoke with Ryan Duffy, who is doing some amazing land development stuff in Omaha, Arkansas, which is just 20 minutes outside of Branson, Missouri. We had the best time talking about his journey from a firefighter to a real estate broker to an investor. Rashmi, what did you think of the conversation today?
I absolutely loved it. So apart from like the whole land development process, which is crazy, we talk about how to build A-frames, how to build container homes, like all the hot buzzwords or all the generational wealth, how to teach your kids. I mean, we get into all of it.
We did. It was amazing. So we loved it. So be sure to check it out. Tune in to hear more from Ryan Duffy, and we will see you next time.
So, Ryan,
Sounds
we're so
good.
excited to have you on the podcast today. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your journey before real estate? Like, how'd you get involved in real estate?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun. I love doing these things. So came to real estate in a really roundabout way. I was a Chicago fireman for 9 years. Shae went to school for interior design in Chicago, and at first I thought I was going to do a 30-year program and pension out, and then move to Florida like everyone else does. And about 6, 7 years into my career, I had several debilitating back injuries. Ended up having several surgeries, and decided on a whim to move way out of the city and start over again. So we've been coming out to the Branson area for the better part of a decade, just for like 4th of July trips and that sort of thing. And we were down here for 4th of July 2016, and we had just sold our house the year before, and we were renting an apartment because we knew at some point a change was coming, and we wanted to sit on a nest egg. And we just got this bug, and we didn't want to go back to Chicago. I mean, literally, that's how it happened. I mean, we had no plans. We drove halfway back to the city. We were kind of depressed, like I don't really want to go back to that basement apartment, and pulled up Zillow and saw this listing that was half a mile from the lake and 20 minutes outside of town, and like the worst listing you ever seen in your life, like close up cell phone photos of a front door. But I'm looking at like the property taxes are like $400 a year, and they wanted 120 grand for this 3-bedroom house on an acre and a half. And I just looked at Shae and I'm like, I can deliver pizzas and pay this mortgage if I had to. And that was literally the conversation, like as far as like financially figuring this thing out, like, we got like 6 months of runway, we'll be fine. So we got back in the car and loaded we just had our one son at the time, he was 3, loaded him back up, drove 4 hours back south, looked at it, moved in 45 days later. And then Shae got her real estate license when we moved down here because she didn't feel like her design skills would quite translate down to this area. It's a lot more rural and everything. And so she got into real estate first. I got into construction because I figured after having 3 back surgeries, swinging a hammer is probably a good move. And but her uncle who lived in the area had a background as a general contractor in California. So that was part of what brought us down to the area. Was he had an opportunity. He had a couple hundred acres that he was starting to subdivide and needed someone to help him build houses. And so that's how I got into that end of it. And I built 2 houses with him, literally from the ground up, just the 2 of us, digging the footers, pouring the foundations, framing, everything. And then I did a remodel business for. Say
Did,
again?
did you have a construction background before this, or did you like learn everything on the
Not
job?
at all.
Wow.
Not even a little bit. No. We did a kind of a light renovation to our house in Chicago before we flipped it, but it was really just stripping paint off of old trim and that sort of thing. So nothing really involved. But it was just a total crash course, with her uncle for the better part of a year and a half, day in and day out. And then we finished those projects, and then a buddy of mine partnered up and started a remodel business. And even on that front, because remodel is a little bit different from new construction, I would go out and bid a job and then spend half the night staying up late watching YouTube videos trying to figure out if I could do it or not. So then we did that until 2019. 2019 is when Shae switched over to a brokerage specializing in short-term rentals. And at that point, we'd had our second child. The house we were living in, we were sort of starting to outgrow. We reached a point where we realized like we either need to build an addition, build a garage, this, that, or the other thing, or it's just not going to be comfortable for us. But we kept telling ourselves over and over again, like this house would be great if we were just vacationing here, but it's not great to raise kids in. Like it was just uncomfortable. Like, the kids' rooms were on the 2nd story. Our room was in the basement. So it was, running up and down 2 flights of stairs twice a night to change diapers was not fun.
Yeah.
But we kept telling ourselves over and over again, like, this would be a great place to vacation. And so she comes home one night and says, you know, I bet you if we put our house on Airbnb, we'd make 30 grand a year. I was like, BS, there's no way. We live in Omaha, Arkansas. No one's ever heard of it. She's like, yeah, but we're close to Branson. We're on Table Rock Lake. And most importantly, we're unrestricted. You know, there's no county restrictions by us. There's no planning and zoning. So, you know, it's doable. So we did an experiment. We bought a property half-mile up the road, the metal shop house building that had a shop, an open dirt floor shop in one half, and the other half was a 2-bedroom apartment. Bought it with my partner for the construction business, and then we rented back the residential space to try this little Airbnb experiment. And within 3 months, that little cabin had completely replaced the income that I was generating doing remodel work. And by month 4, I was getting my real estate license. So that was right before COVID. So I mean, that's when things got real crazy, you know. So yeah. So I mean, it was very nonlinear. You know, we kind of figured it out on the fly, and then realized this whole short-term rental thing was more than just a hobby. Like it's an actual industry. And you know, like I said, within a few months of getting that first one up and running, I stopped taking jobs doing remodel work. I was getting my real estate license. We were already under contract for our second project house that we're going to turn into a short-term rental. And it's just been off to the races ever since then. So fast forward a few years, we own our own brokerage now. I'm brokered in Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. I'm a Arkansas licensed home builder. We have a small property management company that we formed really just to service our own personal properties. But over the last 6 months, we've had friends and family and co-investors want us to join in with them. So we're on the verge of scaling that business up. And really we're at kind of a crossroads in our business, you know, because we've been over the last few years just really focused on brokering deals. And we haven't done a lot with building. You know, we've done it for ourselves personally, but we haven't done it, you know, commercially for other clients as much. And now we feel like just the market conditions, at least in the Branson area, and I'm sure it's like this to a degree all over the country, there's a lot of overvalued stuff and it's not performing like it used to. And a lot of the developments in my area, since it's so restricted, when an area approves a vacation rental use, they're not just building one cabin, they're building 50 or 60. And I feel like that just takes away from the appeal of the area. I mean, that's why I'm sitting here doing this where I am, because I love the backdrop, right? So I moved here from Chicago. I love seeing the nature. I love being able to see the stars at night. And the idea of going on vacation in a vacation rental subdivision that's got 55 homes spread across 10 acres is not appealing. So about 6 months ago, we started down this journey of trying to acquire land in our area to develop on our own. And we're just now, we've sold out half of our first subdivision that we started. It's a very small subdivision. It's 10 acres, but we're doing 10 1-acre lots. And we're being very intentional in how we build those out and what builds we offer. We're not doing any mega lodges or anything like that. It's all 1- and 2-bedroom cabins tucked away in the woods. So we're trying to be very intentional of how we go about this, not just to grow our customer base and grow our portfolio, but also because we're doing this where we're raising our kids. So you know, we drive past this development every day, and I don't want it to turn into something where we look back in 10 years and say, that was great, we made good money, but now I want to move because there's too many people here, you know. So
Your
that's
journey is like
kind of
incredible. And I think you like glossed over this whole thing, but like I'm an immigrant in this country, and like I wouldn't like pick up a hammer and like just go learn the construction side. Like I love this about Americans. Like you guys are just so ready to just like go in and be like, yeah, I'll just learn how to remodel. I'll just learn how to build a house. How complicated could it possibly be? And I love that. And like
well,
you have
thank
this
you.
whole attitude that goes into like land development, real estate brokerage, like whatever like I gotta do. Like I love that. I think so many people are sold this idea that like real estate is passive money, right? And there's ways to make it less busy for you, but I don't think real estate, unless you're in a syndication, is passive by any means. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, I mean, there's ways to do it passively, but it's not going to be, at least starting out. I mean, we started out from the ground up. I mean, we didn't have any money for our first investment. We house hacked it, and even then we still had to partner with friends to purchase the property that we moved into. So I mean, and I work with clients all the time that, they are passive real estate investors, but they're not relying on their Airbnb payouts to pay their bills. I mean, they're buying these properties to utilize, cost segregation studies and other tax saving avenues, so that even if they're not necessarily, high positive cash flow, they're building their portfolio and they're letting the property essentially pay for itself and gain equity. So, I mean, there is that long-term appreciative value to real estate that can be passive, but if you were trying to do something to feed your family while you're doing it, it's not passive at all. I mean, you need to be very hands-on. I mean, that first property that we converted into a short-term rental that we were hoping would do 30 grand a year ended up doing 80. And even still, I mean, that's a great chunk of cash. But when you break down the operating expenses and the cleaning fees and everything else, I mean, that one property is not, it's not going to be a passive investment. We were there, at least for the first year, we cleaned it ourselves, we maintained it ourselves. I mean, we did everything ourselves. It was very hands-on. Even after we got our second property, it wasn't until we were ready to scale to our third that we were finally able to give up that level of control and realize, like, we're tripping over dollars to save pennies. You know what I mean? Like, because we're looking at, like, well, I don't want to give away the $160 cleaning fee. Like, I'll go over there and I'll do it myself. And then after we scaled a little bit, it's like, well, I'm leaving so much more money on the table by trying to clean this myself rather than outsource it. So there are just different ways to think about it. And that's what I love about real estate in general, is there's no linear path to success. I mean, there are so many different avenues you can take. And it's really just being open to the possibilities.
I love it. And I think that goes right into like what I want to talk about, which is what you specialize in, I feel at this point, which is land development, which so many investors want to get into. I've talked to other people who want to get into development, and like me including, I just get so stumped. I get so worried about like everything that could go wrong, and like the numbers are so much bigger. And I'm like, I don't know anything about electricity or septic or raw dirt to like a home in there. So like, what's that journey been like for you? And like, walk us through, like, if I'm a newbie investor, how do I develop?
That's a great question. And that's not something that you just pick up a training manual and figure out in a weekend. I mean, it took me years of trial and error, and just now recently getting comfortable enough to do it for myself. But there is a lot that goes into it, and you have to know, have a very good understanding of the local, municipal structure, the covenants and restrictions of your neighborhood, if you have them, planning and zoning, permitting. So there's a lot that goes into it just on a logistical standpoint. Before you even start talking about, how much dirt do I need to move? Is this soil, suitable for a septic system? And so there's really a lot of nuts and bolts to it. As far as getting into it from the investor standpoint, something that Shae and I are trying to work on is a kind of a training program to start out with, like a coaching program, but then really with the end game of segueing that into building relationships with landowners directly and helping counsel them on the best way to grow wealth with their property without necessarily having to sell it. I know I'm kind of getting a little bit off topic here, but it kind of goes hand in hand. So one of the things too, and getting back to the concept of a developer in general, like you look around the Branson area and you see some of the big vacation rental developments, and the locals hate them, because they're ugly. They're, like I said, they just cram as many houses as they possibly can into an area. It's a strain on the infrastructure. It's a strain on the roads. And it, to a degree, can also hurt, single family housing values, because you've got people from all over the country pouring money into these things. So one of the things I've noticed over and over again over the last few years, just as a broker side of things, is, I'll have a landowner that's got a beautiful piece of property. It's been in the family for a long time, and he knows that he's sitting on $1 million piece of property, but he doesn't want to sell it. He doesn't have the means to develop it. Developing is expensive. Just doing dirt work, just cutting in your water power, sewer is not a big thing here. It's usually private septics, but just bringing in water power and roads can be, high 6 figures or 7-figure investments. So overwhelmingly, we see these pieces of property that sit in these beautiful locations, lakefront, lake view, and they don't necessarily want to sell it, because if they do, first of all, that property is out of the family. Second of all, they have a pretty good inclination that if they do sell it, it's going to get covered up with condos, and so there's that hesitation there. So we've been working with this one client for a couple of years now, and he's got a piece of property that kind of fits that description. and came up with kind of a creative solution to this. You know, he doesn't want to spend the money to develop it, doesn't want to sell it. But okay, well, what if we work on this collectively? What if you agree after we come up with all the terms and particulars and all that? What if you agree to putting your land up, just putting it up into quit claiming it into an LLC that we all form together? You maintain a certain percentage ownership of the land, and then after we agree on the articles of organization and the letter of intent and all that, let us take it over, and we'll raise the funds. We'll do the capital raise. We'll put together the master development plan, and we'll turn it into something that you want to see on the property. And I think that's a really interesting way of going about it, because, you know, again, it's been like a 2-year conversation. Started out with, you know, okay, yeah, we can subdivide and we can probably put 30 or 40 houses back there, but then we're going to lose this beauty. We're going to lose this access to the lakefront. So now it's, you know, maybe we do like a luxury glamping resort, but you don't develop the whole thing. You keep back a portion of the property and you just make sure that is deeded to your family in perpetuity. So, you know, again, kind of a nonlinear answer to your question, how do you get into developing as an investor? I think unless you're really hands-on and you're really doing the work day in and day out to do that, and you know the nuts and bolts of all the different components, it's difficult. Because again, it's not a passive endeavor. It's very, very hands-on. But there is opportunity to invest in it if you can align yourself with the right partners who have the same vision of what you're trying to achieve, and go into an equity partnership. So on a much smaller scale, of course, you can also take a piece of property that you own that maybe is a lower hanging fruit, that has the ability to do a lot line separation, or tie into the existing septic system or existing power grid. And that's actually, you know, part of how we got here over the last couple of years, and really seeing the value of not just buying and fixing and flipping properties, but looking at the land component too. So we had a property we purchased 2 years ago through a 1031, and it was a 3-bed, 3-bath house on an acre and a half, and it was great. It was off-market acquisition. We got it, I feel like, just a little bit below market value, and ultimately what we did was we did a gut renovation on it, turned it into a 4-bed, 4-bath without expanding the footprint at all. Purpose built for a vacation rental. Took out a bunch of the trees that were overgrown and opened up a lake view. And now we've got this 4-bedroom, 4-bath STR right next to Table Rock Lake, unrestricted, on an acre and a half. First thing we did when we were done building was we surveyed off the other acre, because the house itself, you know, it doesn't need an acre and a half. You know, it's nice to have a big yard, but it's not necessary. So we surveyed off the garage that was next to it with its own ½ acre, and then another ½ acre next to it. And the interesting thing was, you know, we didn't do that necessarily thinking we were going to, you know, maximize the profit on this thing. We did that to gift to the garage to Shae's parents, as not really a joke. You know, it was kind of a joke at first because the garage is falling in on itself. And so Shae's parents have done a lot for us over the years, helping us with our children. They moved down here shortly after we did, and they've been a huge help. You know, watching the kids on the weekends while we're out working, and, you know, working late nights. They're always with the kids. So we wanted to do something to show our appreciation and give back, and let them get into real estate investing themselves. So we surveyed off the ½ acre with this detached garage, and we gifted it to them. And they kind of laughed at us, like, what are we supposed to do with this? I said, well, you're going to pull a line of credit from your primary residence, and you're going to use that money to turn this into a 1-bedroom vacation rental cabin, if you want to do that. Otherwise, we'll just keep it and we'll do it ourselves. And they went with it. And we did all the work for them. We helped facilitate it, but they ended up putting about 90 grand into that house. So it was just a small 20 by 20 detached garage, but the foundation was good. So we utilized the existing foundation. Already had city water on the road. There was already power right there. The road went right to it. So all they had to do was put in a septic system. And we rebuilt it and branded it as a romantic couples retreat. And that little thing is booked every single day, just about. It's crazy. It's literally on track to do about 50 grand a year in a 400 square foot, you know, tiny house. So that experience really kind of opened our eyes to the idea that, you know, you can split off chunks of land, you know, depending on where you are, depending on what your local restrictions and regulations are. But at that point, you don't have one parcel with a house and a garage. You've got two parcels with two houses. And we took it a step further, and now we've got a third parcel that's a build lot. And the build lots on the development we did across the street are selling for 100 grand a piece. So we took this $190,000 property. We poured another 150 into it initially. So we're at 340 for this 4-bedroom house. That's, you know, doing about 100 grand a year in revenue. We actually just sold it. We flipped that one for 6.25. The tiny house just appraised for 209, and then the vacant lot next to it is worth about 100. So on that single acquisition over the last 2 years, I mean, the value add's been tremendous, and it's not necessarily just because of the remodel. Big part of it was because we decided to split off into separate parcels.
How do you start surveying?
Awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just curious, like, how do you survey something? Like, do you just like call the county office?
Well, it's going to be a little bit different in every municipality. So you're going to want to call a licensed surveyor to start out with. And then the surveyor is going to come out. You can explain to them exactly what you want to do. In a lot of instances, I'll go out and I'll physically mark what we want, because you can, as long as you're outside of a subdivision, and again, this is all very much predicated on what your county restrictions are. You know, if you're zoned residential, you may not necessarily be able to just go ahead and do this. So you do want to check with the county and make sure that you're within the proper zoning type to do a lot line separation. If not, we can get in the weeds more on that if you wanted to, but then you'd have to go through a subdivision process with state approval and get county conditional use and all that stuff. But for us, we're out in the country. We only have county jurisdiction, and we've got no planning and zoning. So for us, it was literally going out in the yard, putting some marking paint down and saying, and then calling a surveyor and saying, hey, I want to split these lots off. Here's where I want them. And I want them to all be approximately a half acre. So, you know, here's kind of where the line is, but you tell me where it needs to be. And then they come out with their GPS, and they compare that to the plat map that's been recorded with the county, and then they put new iron pins in the ground, and then they record that with the county, and now this is the actual parcel. So that's the first step. And again, that's gonna be a little bit different depending on you know jurisdiction and planning and zoning restrictions and that sort of thing. But it's really that simple if you're out in the county and just subject to state ordinance. So yeah, once we did that, we had a legal description, we had a new PIN number, and it's an entirely different property.
So Ryan, I mean that deal sounded amazing, right? You only invested however much money, and then you got to split it off into all these different parcels. But do you feel like there's still a lot of these opportunities available for people to find?
Absolutely. And I would stress, and this is kind of contradictory coming from a realtor, because that's how we make our money, is by helping people buy stuff. But the last 3 properties that Shae and I have bought personally have been off market. I think the best way to sniff out opportunities for yourself is be familiar with the area that you want to invest in, and then get on the tax record and start making phone calls. That's literally how we've gotten our most lucrative deals, is just driving around the neighborhood and like, man, that's a really beautiful piece of property. I've never seen anyone do anything with it. There's a trailer that's rotting away on it. And I pay about $30 a month for a background check service where I can put in someone's name and mailing address, because that's what you find on the county record typically. And then it'll spit back out a phone number or a list of phone numbers, and I'll just go down the list and start calling. And that's exactly how we bought this property that I just told you that case study on. I mean, I was making phone calls off county record, and actually called on the vacant land next to it, and which we ended up buying also. But I called on that vacant lot, and the guy goes, yeah, I would like to sell that, and I think my neighbor wants to sell too. And I'm like, who's your neighbor? He's like, well, he's got that white house next door, and I know exactly which house that is. So then I went and called the neighbor, and the neighbor said, yeah, actually, I was thinking about listing. I'm not really sure what I want to sell it for, but the estimate says 190, so that sounds good to me. I'm like, okay, well, sounds good to me too. But yeah, there's definitely opportunity there, between off-market acquisitions, and then also, I mean, finding value-add properties. I've never bought a turnkey property. I can't stomach it, because I want to be able to get in there, and again, everyone's investment goals are different and their abilities are different, but I want to get into something that needs a ton of work. because I know just from doing this by experience that, you know, whether it's me doing it myself or if I'm paying someone else to do it, you know, on that last one, I didn't do the work myself. I mean, Shae and I went in and did the first couple of days of demo just for fun because it's fun to break stuff. But then we hired contractors to do all the remodel. I mean, it was like a 6-month job. So that $150,000 reno expense, that included labor. But by the time we were done with it, I mean, the thing appraised for 412. So we had a huge equity gain, you know, just as a basic residential property. And then within a year, we sold it for 625. So you don't need to be the one in there swinging the hammer. You don't need to be the one that's physically doing all the work. But if you're not, it is important to have at least a very rudimentary understanding of how the process works, and you know, and make sure you're keeping everyone accountable. So that's another thing too. Is, I mean, I've been around this long enough to know, you know, if someone gives me a bid, you know, I can laugh at them and say that's 4 times as much as it should be. Some people don't know that, right? And then some people, you know, feel like it's safer to pay their contractor hourly. Like, okay, well, how do you know they're not just in there smoking cigarettes all day? You know, so then you make sure you put blink cameras everywhere. You know, don't hide them on them, but, you know, let them know that you're watching. You know, so especially if you're remote. And I mean, I was doing all these locally, but I mean, I'm off running 2 other businesses. I can't be there to make sure they're pouring concrete when they say they are. So you put blink cameras on all your properties, you know, on the interior, and with the intention of moving them outside when you're ready to short-term rent. You know, that could be a great little tool just to be able to keep accountability. But no, I'd say like scout properties that are off market, scout properties that need repair, especially if they've got acreage. Because again, if you know your local restrictions and regulations, you know, I've talked to people that have just gone as far as buying a house and then separating off the lots, not doing any improvements at all, and then selling it all separately. You know, because again, once you do that separation, that lot line separation or subdivision, if you had to go through that process, now you've got multiple pieces of property that are marketable, not just one. And a lot of people get scared off by the subdivision process too. We're just finalizing our first subdivision review with the state of Arkansas, and it really wasn't that bad. You know, it's again, it's different everywhere you look, but you know, we didn't have to go through city council meetings or planning and zoning because we're out in the country. But really, it was just paying for the surveys, having a septic engineer come and check each of the 10 lots and make sure that they were all suitable for private septic systems, identifying where the city water line was coming in so that that's not, you know, that there's no issue there where it can't be there or it's too close to the septics, and then making sure there's power. And that was it, you know. And then it was like $500 a lot, and then a $500 application fee to the state. But now instead of having a 10-acre parcel, we've got 10 1-acre parcels that we can sell for a premium.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So with these 10 parcels that you're selling off, so you have investors buying them, then are they self-managing, or are you guys now, you know, taking on the management for them?
Either or. So Shae and I bought the first lot for ourselves from the development company. So we partnered with a couple of friends to buy that land. And so we bought the first lot for ourselves. Actually, that's the reason why we sold the 4-bedroom house I was just talking about. We want to do a 1031 into it, and then some other things. And it's kind of a mix so far. We've sold the first 5 lots. I think 2 of them are probably going to have us manage them, but then the rest are all going to be self-managed.
That's awesome. Is this the Constellations development? Oh, is that different?
No, yeah. Constellations is we're holding on to that one that we own with 2 other partners, and that's going to be a luxury couples only resort.
Cool. Yeah. I wanted to hear some more about that because I see it on your Facebook.
Yeah, we're getting excited about that. It's you know, because that's been a long time in the works. We've had the property since last October, October of 22, and that was a long process. So and again, there's kind of these baby steps into development, you know. So on that one, we did this with 2 other couples, and our idea was, you know, in the Branson area, there's a lot of family destinations. There's a lot of small condos that are suitable for couples, but there's nowhere to really go for like a quiet romantic getaway, unless you just find a little cabin in the woods, which in the Branson market's really hard to find. So we had this idea to build out a smaller luxury spaces and just cater them towards adults. So we custom built these 4 A-frames, and they're not huge. They've got 30-foot vaulted ceilings, so they feel huge, but they're about 800 square feet. They've got a bedroom with a loft space above, and the loft space we've kind of built as like a flex space. So if the couple's demographic doesn't really pan out, we can always throw a couple beds up there, and that can be the family, the kids area. But on this one, we bought a 6-acre piece of property that had a dilapidated house and 3 single-wide trailers on it. And so this one actually turned out really interesting. So we bought the property, and we ended up raising all the structures. We just bought it for the land and the infrastructure. It had 2 existing septic tanks that were serviceable. It had 2 city water taps that had power coming to the property, highway access directly to the property, and then Cricket Creek Marina is a full-service marina on Table Rock Lake, is less than 5 minutes from us, and there's a wedding venue right across the street. So we felt like it was just a great spot, 20 minutes outside of Branson. So when we bought the property and we knew we had to spend money to get rid of all these structures, try to get creative with that. So I reached out to all the local fire departments to see if I can get anyone to come in and train on it and burn them down. Because I remember doing that when I worked for the city. We wouldn't do it for houses, but they had actual training facilities that would simulate these things. And in a rural volunteer department, you just don't really get those opportunities. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any fire departments on board to do that. But I was able to get the local SWAT team to come in and train on them. So a SWAT team came in from out of Boone County, Arkansas, and they spent 3 or 4 days doing hostage drills and search and rescue drills, and they just tore these things apart. It was great. It was a lot of fun to watch. Throwing flashbangs, and at the end they were throwing tear gas grenades and stuff, and so that was pretty cool. We got them to sign a charitable donation receipt for that, because we let them effectively destroy every structure on the property. And then we had the appraiser that did the initial appraisal when we purchased the property itemize out the specific improvement valuations versus the land valuation. And so we ended up buying the property for $170, I think was the final purchase price. On the appraisal, it showed $129,000 to the improvement value. We were able to write off $129,000 as this charitable donation to a public service entity, and take a huge, tax advantage for the first year of ownership, which was kind of unplanned. It's just like we had this afterthought, like after we bought the property, like this is all going to go to waste. I mean, we can't put renters back in here. I mean, they're not really habitable. There were renters in there when we bought it, but there shouldn't have been. I mean, these things were rough. But I thought that was pretty cool. We got to work with local law enforcement for a few days, and they got a lot of good training out of it. And then we got some good tax benefits for ourselves and the investors that purchased it with us. So then not only are we looking at the cost seg analysis, here in a couple months after the builds are done, but we also got that initial cost savings on the tax side. So that's a 6-acre development. The first phase is going to have the 4 cabins. We're doing a shared indoor pool that they're going to all have access to, and then the next phase is going to be a series of tree houses that go down in the valley. So we're pretty excited about that one. So yeah, that's been an interesting project.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I can't wait to see updates on how that looks.
Ryan, you guys have a shipping container, right?
Say again?
You have a shipping container home?
We do, yeah. We finished that project September of last year. That was another weird one. So when Airbnb did their new rollout, whatever it was, 2 years ago, and they brought in all the categories, I started going through all the categories and tried to figure out what I could do here locally that wouldn't cost $1 million. I really wanted to do a cave, but I couldn't find a good cave for that, and there's no good way to even estimate the cost on what that would be. So that was my number one goal, was doing a cave. Well, I was stumbling across the other things, and I didn't quite want to do A-frames at that point in time, but I saw the shipping container thing, and I said, okay, well, I think I can figure that one out. And so we pulled the trigger on it, and with the intention initially of selling it as a spec home. So we didn't intend to keep it for ourselves initially. So we started building it, and we actually pulled a line of credit off the 4-bedroom house from my last case study, because we had so much equity in it once we were done that we were able to just about cash flow the entire build off that line of credit. So started doing that, got the thing about halfway built out. It was under contract to get purchased by another actual local realtor here that specializes in short-term rental. And right around is probably July of last year, his financing fell through. Maybe even earlier than that, maybe earlier in the spring. But the bank pulled back, said that it's too risky of an investment. There's nothing to compare it to. They said maybe after a year or so, after it's cash flowed, they could do a DCSR package or something like that on it. But that kind of took the wind out of our sails, because we were building this as a spec home. We pulled a line of credit that was due to come back shortly after we finished the build, and that got us kind of nervous, because we had like $250,000 outstanding on this line of credit, and we weren't even done building the house yet. I mean, they ended up going way over cost. We ended up hoping we could build it for about 200, and then when the buyer's financing fell through, we just got crazy with it and decided, well, if we're gonna have keeping this thing, let's add a rooftop deck, let's do all composite deck, let's do this, that, and the other thing. So we ended up shooting the cost up on it significantly. Ended up having a final cost of about $300,000, and ended up putting a lot of it on credit cards at the end. So that was kind of scary. But that was actually another really good learning experience. Aside from doing a cool shipping container house, it really got us thinking and involved in the realm of creative financing and equity partnerships. Because ultimately to finish that thing off and get out from under our debt, we brought in 2 equity partners for that project. One is the original buyer that wanted the house. He had enough for the down payment, but not enough to buy the whole thing. So we sold him 25% of the property. And then we had an angel investor come in and buy up the other 50%. So now Shae and I own 25% of it, and we also hold exclusive management rights in perpetuity. So that really kind of changed our mindset too, because up until that point, we had been approached by people that wanted to partner on things, but we just were like, nah, I just want to do my own thing. I want to have full control and full ownership over my projects. But then after that happened, it's like, why don't we do more of this? I mean, it's so much easier if you're not leveraging every penny you've got saved up to buy another property. If you can just go out and effectively sell the plan, sell the idea, sell yourself as a manager and as a developer to a degree, and just get it done. And that's sort of the arrangement that we have on Constellations as well. We've got 2 other couples that we're friends with that wanted to do this type of project, but they had the financial means, but they didn't have the time to do it. And we said, okay, well, we'll do it, but we want to own a third of it, and we want to manage it. So on that project, we've got a percentage ownership of the entire development with almost no equity of our own put into it. So that again, this has been learning the hard way over the last few years, stumbling, making mistakes, and then figuring out, okay, there's an easier path forward here. But it really got the wheels turning. It's like, well, we can do more of this. And
how did you find your angel investor and people to raise capital from? That's something like newbie real estate investors are always asking, including me.
It was very much a God thing initially. I mean, we stumbled into this. We had a client call into our brokerage looking for investment properties. He was looking for flip houses, and he called on a listing we had, and Shae went and showed him the listing and basically talked him out of it. Said, all right, for what you're describing, for what you're trying to do, for your goals, like this property is priced too high. You're not going to get a good return on it. And he just really appreciated her honesty and invited us out to lunch and just started getting to know us. And we got to know him a little bit better. And he was in a position where he just had a company go public and had a massive windfall. And he was looking to just invest in real estate and just do different things. And we were just kind of telling him through the course of conversation about this shipping container debacle that we got ourselves into. And he's like, well, let me come out and take a look at this thing. And he came out and looked, and he's asking us again, like, kind of what our struggle is with it. And I'm like, well, it's financing. We can't finance it. And then he's like, well, make me a proposal. What do you mean make you a proposal? I don't even understand. Like, well, see if there's any way I can help. Like, let's just throw out a proposal and see if I can help. Well, then that got the conversation started for Shae and I, and then for our other partner who ended up being the first equity partner in this. Like, maybe we can find somebody else to just buy stake in this. And so from that first conversation, we started interviewing other people. And we reached out through our network, through our sphere of investors that we'd already worked with, and talked about this unique project we're doing and said, hey, this is going to be the only short-term rental shipping container house within 200 miles of Branson. Are you interested in buying stake in it? Here's how much I think it's going to cost. 50% ownership is going to be this much. And we had 5 or 6 serious conversations with people just based off of the pro formas that we had built, the projections on how we felt it would do, and really just the excitement, because they could see like we're doing something special and different. And you can go and buy a condo anywhere in town, but this is going to be the only one of these. And we had several conversations, and then ultimately we went back with the first person that we had met with, and it's been phenomenal. And since then, we've had other people approach us and have conversations and say, if anything else comes up, let's talk. And so really, I think the first step to trying to get this type of creative financing or investors lined up, or whatever you want to call it, is demonstrating that you know what you're doing. Even if you don't entirely know what you're doing. I'd never built a shipping container house before, but I've over the last 4 years built a track record of success with the short-term rental remodels we've done, with the tiny house we did, with the different flips that we've done. And so this person saw that and saw the portfolio and said, okay, well, I'm willing to take a gamble on this. And after that went well and panned out, he said, well, what else can we get into? And now we're talking about bigger projects, that aren't just a single build, but on a grander scale, whether it's a resort or a subdivision or glamping configuration. So really, it's about being prepared and demonstrating that you're a subject matter expert in what you're trying to do. I mean, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but in that little corner of Omaha, Arkansas, I'm confident that I've got a better handle on what's going to perform than any other broker or agent or builder within 100 miles of me. So I can sell that really well. Can I pick up what I'm doing and go to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, and do the exact same thing? Probably not right now. But I think there's a potential here for a structure to be built so that you can have a framework and have like a guidebook to be able to talk to landowners and talk to the area subject matter experts and see what the need is here. And it may not always be short-term rentals. There's a massive need right now for affordable housing here. And that's also a big part of why I wanted to do the shipping container build initially, because I thought potentially there could be a way to do this on scale and bring the price down. And I don't think there is with a shipping container house, but that's kind of the idea, is like, why can't you leverage a short-term rental investment to be able to bring more value to the community that you're in? And that's another big part of the reason we're doing what we're doing is, I don't want my neighborhood to turn into what some of these developments in Branson have turned into. So on our subdivision that we're doing, we've got about a 3-acre piece where the creek feeds into the lake that we're trying to put into a public land trust, with the intention of working with the Corps of Engineers to allow us to make it into a public park. So I think doing things like that, especially when you look at it through the lens of, right now there's no regulation where I'm at, but there will be. There always is. Once a place becomes popular, once investors start pouring into it, planning and zoning comes back into play. So we feel that if we're doing this in a way that's socially and environmentally responsible, and we're also bringing value to the community, then we're going to be looked at more favorably when those restrictions and regulations do come into place. And it's also going to be the type of development that I think is going to appreciate longer in the long run, because it doesn't have to be just a vacation rental home. These houses that we're building, like I said, they're not massive. They're 1 and 2 bedroom houses, but they're on an acre of property. And the price point's pretty attainable. We're talking low 300s. So you've got room to build a garage. You've got room to put an ADU. You could put a geodome or a secondary house on the same property if you wanted to. So it could be a situation where, maybe somebody wants to get into investing on more of an entry level market price point, but they want to be able to buy there and pay it off over the next 20 years and then move there and retire, mortgage free. So,
Yeah. I love this story. Can I just actually change a little bit on the direction? I'm like super curious, and I'm like wanting to ask you this for a while now. I see you all over social media, like you're on TikTok, I've seen you on Facebook, and you're like so active. And you have all of these projects going on. Like, where do you find the time? Like, and you have kids, like you have wives, like you're busy. And social east with real estate.
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't have enough time. We're trying to leverage as much as we can with partners, honestly, and that's another big, I think, stepping stone that we realized within the last year or so is we can't do it all. So we're actively talking about bringing partners into this development business that we've just recently formed. We're talking about bringing partners into our brokerage to kind of take some of the slack off of that as well. I'm bringing another a partner into the property management side of things. So I've got somebody that I've been in talks with for several weeks now that's looking to move into the area and get his Arkansas real estate license so he can just manage properties. And he's a really great back end management guy. He's got all the systems down. He's all about the what was the big term at this year's conference was cash flow management, revenue management. He's a revenue management guy. I am not. I'm just the guy that's here at 7 o'clock at night trying to eat dinner with my kids and answering messages to guests. Like which I don't want to do that anymore either, So we're trying to leverage all these different aspects of the business so that we can focus on the things that we're most passionate about. We love real estate, we love building, but we can't be the ones, that are there every day showing the houses. We can't be the ones that are there all day long, throughout the course of the build. We want to be the ones that are there looking at kind of the bigger picture projects ultimately. So a lot of what we've got going on, it seems like a lot, and it is, but a lot of it's been in the works for a long time. The subdivision project we're working on has been 7 or 8 months, and we haven't even broken ground yet. It was that much diligence. It was that much time to really build the plan and the proper pro formas and then decide what we wanted to build there before we even started offering. And then even the Constellations project, that started, like I said, over a year ago. But it's interesting when you're doing build projects in particular, everything seems to go fast at first. You're breaking ground, you're framing, all right, you got structure in the air, and then it always feels like it's taking forever. Because it's really fast to frame something, but it takes forever to finish it out, it seems like. Same thing with a remodel and just new construction in general. But yeah, in particular, like right now on social media, it probably looks like I've got a lot going on because it's all coming to fruition kind of at the same time. But yeah, I think, finding balance is difficult. And that's been a struggle for us professionally, personally within our relationships, because Shae and I work together and do life together and, raise a family together. And it's hard to find that balance of, okay, how do you flip that switch? We're not business partners right now. Like we're on a date, but it's like, there almost is no distinction, whether that's good or bad. And that was something that we've slowly come to realize over the last couple of years too, because we've always had this, underlying, I don't know if guilt's the right word, but, to a degree guilt, because we're workaholics. And we'll drag our kids with us to build sites, and we'll bring them to showings, and we'll drag them around the side by side as we're looking at land. And after a certain point, and talking to some of the colleagues and mentors we've had over the last year or two has been huge. To have this conversation with them, it's like, well, you're not. It's not like you're neglecting your kids. You're bringing them to work with you, like you're teaching them the value of what you're doing. And I was really proud of. I'm proud of all my kids, but in particular today, I was really proud of our oldest, Gavin, because they were home from school today. School had like an admin day. So I'm actually just here to pick up my youngest. He's at daycare. But we put him to work on the yard. So we just got done building our personal house, and it looks like a freaking tornado went through the yard. It's a work site, so there's stuff everywhere. So we told Gavin and Lana that we'd pay them $5 a bag for full bags of trash they picked up in the yard. And so we got home from a meeting I had this morning and pull up, and there was a big pile of bags in the yard, and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of bags of trash. He's like, yeah. And I walk in, and Shae's like, yeah, he stuffed a bunch of them with cardboard boxes. So it's really not as much as you think. And I'm like, okay, like, well, that doesn't count. And then he got kind of frustrated, and he's like, oh, I was like, okay. I'm like, but I'll tell you what, you take all the cardboard out, we'll make a burn pile, whatever we got to do, and we'll figure out what the value of that is. Because he's like, well, how much do I get for the burn pile? I'm like, I don't know. He sat there and thought about it for a minute. He's like, all right. He's like, when you get a chance, Dad, I want you to come out, look at my burn pile, and give me an appraisal of what you think the value of what I'm doing is. I did a double take. I'm like, what did you just say? He's like, I want you to give me your appraised value of what you think my work was today. I'm like, that's brilliant. I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
hopefully I'm doing something right here. But I thought that was really cool.
I love
That's
that.
awesome.
I love the fact like how you build your family, like you're talking about family values and like how we raise kids, right? But also in a bigger section about the community, right? Like you don't want everything to be a condo unit that looks the same, cookie
Right.
cutter, boring. We don't want Chicago, even though it's beautiful in
Right.
Brooklyn, or you're right, or in Omaha, right? Like there's a difference, and people
Yeah.
are coming out for the nature. A lot of developers forget that.
Yeah, because I mean the low hanging fruit is to cram on as many units as you can because it's more profitable. You know, a single septic system can cost you from $8,000 to $30,000 depending on what type of system you're doing. But if you cram multiple units on one high efficiency system, I mean that cuts your unit cost down dramatically, and you can effectively sell those units for the same price. Because it's interesting when you look at real estate values, when you're looking at a quarter acre lot versus a 1 acre lot versus a 1.5 acre lot, it really does not make that much of a difference to an appraiser. So from a builder's perspective, selling on smaller parcels of land makes more sense, because you can cram more utilities in. It costs X amount per foot just to pull underground power lines, and it's a large number per foot. So if you're building closer together, your infrastructure cost is that much lower. So that's the difficulty is, and again, trying to do this in a way that's cost effective, that's a fair market value. It's hard, and that's what we struggled with for a long time, and that's why we're doing these A-frame projects. We did the first 4, said okay, I think I got these down, but oh, sorry, I thought I had it on Do Not Disturb, but I had Shae beeping in, and she gets through my Do Not Disturb. So doing these first 4, I'm confident that I can do them in volume. So now we're doing 10 more, but they're spread out. But then those will be the last 10. We're not doing any more A-frames. So I've already started working on some designs for some other modern looking homes and this, that, and the other thing. But it is really difficult to try to do custom one-off homes. They're not cost effective. I mean, they're worth it in the long run, but from a more of an entry level investor that's never done a build before, they're going to look at that price per square foot and say, I'm not going to pay $400 a square foot to do this. It's like, okay, well then we need to do 10 of these at once, and then it's going to be a little more palatable. But that's the trade-off. If you want that uniqueness, if you want that truly unique property, it's not going to be a spec build price, and it's going to be a heck of a lot more than $200 a square foot in most instances.
I love it. Love it. You guys have so much going on. Absolutely love it. If people want to get in touch with you, they have questions, they want to buy in your market, how can they find you? And do you teach newbie investors how to develop land? You said you have a coaching program?
Yeah, so that's actually very early in the works. Actually, today I think we're making the formal announcement. So we're partnering up with a group called Ignite STR, and that's Tommy Sedita and Mike Stone are running that program. And so Tommy and Mike are going to be doing the STR coaching and MTR coaching, and then I'm coming on to develop a coaching program for new construction, remodel, and land development. So again, that's very early in the conversation. I just signed the agreement with them about a week ago. But we'll be offering some coaching programs. I'm putting together kind of a guidebook for a step-by-step kind of do-it-yourself program, so that if you wanted to kind of assess what you could do with your own property or your own project, it'll kind of give you a checklist to go through, calling planning and zoning, doing this, to see if it's something that you want to take on. And then of course, I'm happy to offer one-on-one initial consultations just to see if something seems viable, if it's worth having a broader conversation. And then that's where that kind of rolls over into that broader category of us being able to come in, help you build a pro forma, help you come up with a pitch deck to raise this outside capital to make your project come to fruition. So that's kind of what we got on the horizon right now. If anyone wants to reach me, we're very active on Facebook. My name is Ryan Duffy, Duffy Homes Branson. Instagram is Ozark Mountain STR. And we have a website that you can reach us at, www.duffyhomesllc.com. And if you want to see some of our rentals, we're actually just getting ready to relaunch our direct booking site. It's been kind of a hot mess over the last couple of years, but that is ozarkmountainvacation.com. And hopefully that website will be live here within the next week or so.
Thank you so much, Ryan. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun.